Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One of the proofs for the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi is the Qur'an, which is an inimitable literary miracle of unrivaled eloquence. However, the miraculousness of the Qur'an is very difficult to realize for someone who is not specialized in Arabic. Never mind someone who does not speak Arabic at all. Such a person would not be qualified to judge the literary quality of the Qur'an, nor be able to compare it with the other literature in order to determine its inimitability. Fortunately, there are ways around this problem. One can appreciate the miraculousness of the Qur'an, even if one does not speak Arabic, by considering the following three facts. First, the Qur'an challenges Prophet Muhammad's opponents, the pagan Arabs, to disprove its miraculousness by getting together and producing a chapter that rivals the eloquence of any of its chapters. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإن كنتم في ريب مما نزلنا على عبدنا فأتوا بصورة من مثله وادعوا شهداءكم من دون الله إن كنتم صادقين. And if you doubt what we have revealed to our slave, then produce a chapter like it, and call upon your supporters other than Allah, if you are truthful. Second, the pagan Arabs were expert poets, likely the best in the Arabic language in all of history. To this day, Arabic linguists still use pre-Islamic poetry as a template for grammatical and linguistic rules. This is proof that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's opponents were competent, and that it is nomically necessary for them to have been able to meet the Qur'anic challenge. Third, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's opponents were heavily invested in destroying Islam and disproving his prophethood. The pagan Arabs imprisoned, tortured and killed many of the early Muslims. They even engaged in wars against the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his community. Wars where those pagans spent much time, much money, and risked their very lives in order to stop the spread of Islam. With the above in mind, we argue, if the pagans were unable to meet the Qur'anic challenge, then Muhammad is a true prophet. The pagans were unable to meet the Qur'anic challenge. Therefore, Muhammad ﷺ is a true prophet. As for the first premise, this is true because the inability of the pagans to address this challenge would be a negation of normalcy, i.e. a miracle. The inability of the pagans to address the challenge is a negation of normalcy given their expertise in poetry. Not to mention that the Prophet was also an unlettered man who could neither read nor write. And it is nomically impossible for one man, especially if unlettered, to present a work that the collective efforts of his community of professional poets cannot rival, let alone surpass. As for the second premise, it is true given the fact that the pagans were heavily interested in destroying Islam, resorting to taking extreme risks to do so, and yet they failed in their objective. From this we deduce the following. If the pagan Arabs were able to address the Qur'anic challenge, and given their extreme desire to destroy Islam, they would have spared themselves the time, money, and the risk of death in battle, and they simply would have cooperated with one another in order to produce a text which rivaled the Qur'an literarily. But they did not, and Islam ultimately prevailed. Thus, the pagan Arabs were unable to address the Qur'anic challenge when it was nomically necessary for them to have been able to do so. And since Muhammad ﷺ was a claimant to prophethood, who was aided with this negation of normalcy, then Muhammad ﷺ is a true prophet of God. To make the above clearer, Imam al-Baqilani compares the failure of the pagans in addressing the Qur'anic challenge to a prophet who challenges his opponents to move their hands, when God prevents them from this act for the time frame of the prophet's challenge. This is a negation of nomic necessity for those people, and proof for this prophet's prophethood. Likewise, God preventing the pagans from being able to address the Qur'anic challenge is a negation of nomic necessity for them, and thus a proof for Muhammad's prophethood sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.